Cage Minds MMA show. I'm Mika Frankl. Whether you're watching or listening, I appreciate you. Like, share, and subscribe. That'd be a huge help. Follow us on social media. It's Cage Minds Combat Sports News on Facebook. Cage Minds _CSN for Combat Sports News on Instagram. At Cage Minds MMA on Twitter. The website, obviously, cageminds.com. The YouTube is Cage Minds MMA Show. If you haven't heard the podcast and you're watching this on YouTube, just search for Cage Minds on your podcast. Again, we told you the YouTube. If you're listening to this, also check out MMA After Hours and Pro Wrestling After Hours that I do with Mr. Michael Carlisle, part of the After Hours Podcast Network. You can get those podcasts both right on the website. And if you want to support everything Cage Minds is doing, apparel is available. Hoodies, beanies, mugs, and the original t-shirt, all available still by going to nmproshop.com. That'll redirect you to Now Prints and their host page for all of the New Mexico local combat stores where you can purchase our lovely apparel. So we got a lot to talk about today. Eagle FC debuted in America. You have a big night from Bellator, UFC this weekend, LFA, news from the PFL, Bellator, the UFC, a lot to go over, so strap in your seats. Gonna start with one, only the brave, featherweight kickboxing Grand Prix semifinals. Sitachai Sitsang Pilong takes care of David Carria, one-way traffic. The same, Wunchinga Alazaz takes out Joe Nanyawat. There we go. The finals are set. Friday night, head on over to Miami. Eagle FC 44 heavyweight main event. Two incredible strikers. Sergey Karatanov, Tyrone Spong. Karatanov coming out to land his trademark jab. Spong countering with vicious leg kicks. Karatanov didn't like him, put Spong on his back, and was easily able to slide to mount. Spong was able to defend himself through the first round. Second round, we're on his back, got his right arm caught under a massive leg of Karatanov. Karatanov able to isolate the left arm and had his opponent wide open for strikes. The referees jump in. The TKO in the second round. Rashad Evans, domination on the ground, puts Gabriel Checo on his back and was able to slide through positions, easily control. It's 30-27, a couple leg lock attempts from Checo, but for the most part, this was all Sugar Rashad, revamped, looking healthy, feeling good, went back to his wrestling roots, looked right there at 205 pounds with this level of competition, taking the sourness out of your mouth of the losing streak that the legend had to suffer going into retirement. There were injuries, there were other issues in the background. This may not be the best Rashad Evans ever again, but this is a guy who can definitely put a respectable spin to the end of his career if he's able to keep getting matchups of this echelon. In the feature fight, Ray Borg versus Cody Gibson. Borg gets the unanimous decision victory, even gets a 10-8, but everything did not start off great, as early on it was Borg rushing straight forward, and it was Gibson able to pick off Borg before the entry would begin because of the amount of pressure he was bringing in. A very good round for Gibson with his boxing, picking Ray Borg off from outside into the second round. Borg took a step back, slowed down a little bit, picked his shots, the left hand, started landing, busted Gibson open on the outside of his right eye. And from that moment on, Borg was able to find his entries, slowing things down, actually sped things up in his offense, made him more effective, more dangerous, and we saw vintage Borg ground game in that third round. A big win for Ray Borg. We saw that in UAE Warriors. Now we're seeing it here in Eagle FC. Still one of the best lighter fighters in the world. Ramazan Magomedov gets a unanimous decision over John Doomsday Howard, but didn't feel that his striking lived up to par and that his effectiveness on the ground, what was plentiful, was not just utterly dominant. It's 10-0 and just beat a very, very experienced veteran who has lethal striking in John Howard. Ramin Magdalev defeats Anthony Njokwani. It was the ground strikes. It was overwhelming dominance. That one was impressive. Jorgen De Castro, when we saw him in the UFC, it was his punches that did a lot of damage. This time, it's a guillotine choke, the hips in, and sticking Sean Archer against the fence to get the finish. Also, you had DeMarcus Jackson, the TKO on the feet, taking out Mile Huntsinger, handing Huntsinger his first professional loss. Some people will call it an early stoppage. It was one of those TKOs where you see in one championship a guy getting knocked down looking like he's hurt, then popping back up a second later, but it was a fair finish in my opinion. Loki Rajababov, after 2 consecutive PFL finals appearances, now up at 165, the special division that is only there in Eagle FC, love that division, 165 pounds, gets the submission, the guillotine choke of Zach Zane. Adi Majadin early on in the card collected a decision win over Sitik Mudev. First time I had seen Majadin since he competed here in Albuquerque on the regional scene, fighting Harvey Park on the Jackson's MMA series. At that time he was with the Jackson Wink Academy. He's left. Looks like he's added some new layers to this game, and I'm very happy to see him succeeding on the highest level like Eagle FC. Now head on over to Bellator 273, the main event. Heavyweight title unification bout. The champ, Ryan Bader, first time since 2019 that he was in the division. The guy that he took the heavyweight Grand Prix title from in the finals was Fedor Emelianenko. He's unifying the titles against Valentin Moldavsky, a Fedor protege. The fight between two wrestlers similarly sized would be highly contested. The first round, Bader, a big overhand right, had Moldavsky in trouble against the cage. The second round, Moldavsky was able to collect himself, get his grappling on, land some of his own big punches. More of that in the third round. Bader battles back into the fourth round, 2-2 going into that fifth. Both guys able to take each other down. Both guys had landed powerful shots. Into that fifth round, you have a bit more damage, more activity from Ryan Bader, the top position, and the takedown from Valentin Moldavsky. Now as we go to the judges' scorecards being read, body language tells a lot of the story, and it does to me, because you can't know what happened until you know what happened, and that's the rule of combat sports. When you go to those judges' decisions, Moldavsky, with his language barrier, very curious looking around, and you see a Ryan Bader, hands on his hips, kind of looking down sideways, a bit dejected with his performance. And then the judges' scorecards are read. All three judges see it the same. 48-47 for your winner and still champion, Ryan Bader. Maybe a bit of that hometown judging, because just a week prior in California, UFC heavyweight title unification bout, top control, top time, out grappling your opponent, and having those control numbers mattered immensely. But on Saturday night, the talk was, he just didn't do enough. He didn't do enough with that position. Kind of comical after the rant that you heard me go through last week. If you've been anywhere on the podcast, I've been talking about the lack of activity from Francis Ngannou. It's alright for Ngannou to do it, not for Moldavsky. Bader is the champion. We'll have some news on who Ryan Bader will be defending against, and pretty soon, coming up in just a little bit. The co-main event, we also had a battle between Arizona and Russia, Vincent Henderson versus Islam Mamedov. It appeared that nobody wanted to fight the Russian. And when nobody wants to fight somebody, if it's between 155 and 175 pounds, Vincent Henderson will be your huckleberry. He will jump in no matter what. A first round that was largely dictated by the Henderson low kicks and the threat of the guillotine every time Mamedov got in close. The second round, Mamedov was able to get in close, get the fight down to the ground, and he was hunting the back, also close on a couple submission attempts. Round 3, we're back to those Henderson leg kicks. Couple intriguing grappling situations, but Mamedov gets the takedown. And Henderson, though, quite active off his back, is rewarded with the split decision win. Arizona goes 2-0 on the night against Russia in some pivotal contests, in some big spots, and with the judging being called into a bit of question, but they were both very close fights. Just not what we were used to. Henry Corrales back into the win column, beating up on Aiden Lee, unanimous decision. Lee is a very talented submission expert, but if you can't get there, he's not doing a lot of work. Sabah Hamasi didn't like how things were going on the feet against Jaleel Willis. Willis overextends himself on a punch, ends up on the ground, and Hamasi from the side control saw the head and arm choke, that submission right on, jumps into full pressure on it, and gets the tap. Enrique Brazola, a huge debut into Bellator, TKO from strikes in the third round, stuffing Darian Caldwell and doing damage while Caldwell was turtled up. Huge debut for the former Ultimate Fighter Latino winner. And Chris Gonzalez, in just over 30 seconds, I think it's 36 seconds officially, head kick, that left leg comes up fast off the top of Syed Awad's hands and finishes the bout with some punches, Awad turtling up on the ground. So a couple interesting names there at bantamweight, lightweight, showing that these young guys have a lot of juice behind them. And then the light heavyweight division, Sullivan Cully takes care of Big Tuna, ripped the can right open and pounded that fish on the ground. Cully getting the takedowns, and it was one-way traffic in the first round. UFC fight announcement time. UFC 271 on February 12th has an adjustment. Ed Herman is out, and William Knight is stepping in to face Maxine Grisham in light heavyweight action. UFC Fight Night on February 19th. Gaines at heavyweight. Parker Porter versus Alan Boudreaux. The UFC Fight Night on February 26th. Middleweight matchup adjustment. Mahmoud Muradov is out, and Misa Shurkinov is jumping in to face Wellington Thurman. And in women's bantamweight action, Wu Yan has had to withdraw. Josana Nunez will jump in to face Jennifer Gonzalez. UFC Fight Night on March 12th. Josh Kubia is out, and Damon Jackson will step in to face Kamala Kirk. We've mentioned this before. The UFC returns to London on March 19th. The card has added at featherweight, number 7 ranked Arnold Allen taking on Dan Hooker, number 8 ranked. Lightweight is coming down a weight class. And in light heavyweight action, Nikita Krylov is going to be taking on Paul Craig. In bantamweight action, Ludwig Shalin is taking on Nathaniel Wood. And in welterweight action, Gunnar Nelson takes on Claudio Silva. The UFC Fight Night in Columbus, Ohio on March 26th has gained number 12 ranked welterweight Neil Magny versus Max Griffin. At featherweight, Luis Aldana is going to be taking on Bruno Souza. Lightweight action, Mark DeCasey versus Vyacheslav Borchev. That one is in the works, not quite official yet. UFC 273 on April 8th adds in the middleweight division Dacris Du Plessis versus Chris Curtis. And in women's strawweight action, Kay Hansen versus Pierre Rodriguez. UFC Fight Night on April 16th has been announced to be headlined by a top 5 welterweight rematch. Number 4 ranked Vicente Luque against number 5 Belal Muhammad. That card will also see in a top 15 middleweight matchup, number 9 Uriah Hall against number 13 Andre Muniz. Pani Kinzad will fight Leah Landsberg in women's bantamweight action. The UFC Fight Night on April 23rd has gained in heavyweight action Tanner Bozier versus Rodrigo Nascimento. And in light heavyweight action, a long time away, I believe about 3 years, Tyson Pedro returns to take on Ike Villanueva. UFC Fight Night on April 30th. This one, a matchup between legends. We're going to get to see Cowboy Cerrone against Joe Lozon. Also at lightweight, Mike Brennan takes on Nathan Levy. And then UFC 274. Don't forget, we had already announced Glover Teixeira, Yuri Prochazka, light heavyweight title bout. Addition to that card, the lightweight title is on the line. Charles Oliveira defending against Justin Gaethje. And in women's strawweight action, Lupi Godinez will take on Arani Carasoli. UFC 273 will not official. That is going to be Korean Zombie versus Alexander Volkov. The unofficial part is the location, but it looks like that one could be taking place at the ViStar Arena in Jacksonville, Florida. Remember, the UFC kicked off their pandemic series with 3 straight events. They're in Jacksonville. Going to be returning, it looks like, for UFC 273. Bellator news. Heavyweight champion of the world Ryan Bader gets a quick turnaround after defending the title. Immediately announced that he'll be facing Czech Congo in France May 6th. Bellator is going to be in London May 13th. That card has added one opponent not announced. Paul Daly says he will be fighting on that card, and it will be his retirement fight, ending a 19-year career in MMA. LFA news, we told you last week, want to reiterate it. The promotion will be in Phoenix, Arizona for LFA 124. The main event, flyweights, UFC vet Jussier Formiga versus his fellow countryman Felipe Buns. And then in the co-main event, also at 125 pounds, Clayton Carpenter, the unbeaten Arizona fighter, takes on Winston Ramos. It's 4-1. PFL announcement, the promotion has signed recently released UFC veteran Jeremy Stevens. He looks to compete in the upcoming season. This week, what do you have to look forward to? Well, inside of the Octagon, there's 2 events. Yes, because the LFA gets to use the term Octagon too. Friday night, LFA 123, Hammond, Indiana, UFC Fight Pass, Bantamweight main event. Dan the Determined Argueta off of Tough 29 is where you recognize the name. Check out the interview, cageminds.com, and all across the podcast and on the YouTube channel. It's available this week. I'm being at 6-0. Last year, armbar victory over Madalena, and that one was a LFA Submission of the Year candidate. He has 5 finishes, 4 submissions. Those other 3, rear naked chokes. A high-level wrestler who I've been watching beat up strikers for a long time. Watched them throughout the amateur scene. Why do I say beating up strikers? That comes into play here, taking on Brazilian Mairon Santos. 12-0, double the professional experience of Argueta. Half of his wins, so that's 6. As many fights as Argueta has, Santos has knockout victories. Tenacious Brazilian with very good Muay Thai. His takedown defense will be tested. Argueta told me he wants to finish, he wants to pound this guy into the mat, and that he is very angry he's not already called up to the UFC. The co-main event is also in the bantamweight division. One-time UFC signee Askar takes on Rysolbek Ibramov, coming to us for the first time from China. Askar is coming off of a split decision win over Leonardo Gomez, Abramov has won 9 of his last 10, the majority of those by decision. Also an intriguing lightweight bout, Josh Streaker, who I talked to earlier this week, 7-4 overall, 6 wins by knockout. Only his second fight now since coming down from 170 pounds to 155. He's going to be taking on Brazilian Miguel Jacob, who also fancies himself a striker. So that one already leading the candidacy for fight of the night. Saturday night, it's UFC Vegas 47 at the Apex, a top 10 middleweight matchup in the main event. Number 6, Jack the Joker Hermansson against number 7, Sean Tarzan Strickland. Hermansson 22-6, Strickland 24-3. Been watching Strickland since 2013 when he won the King of the Cage middleweight title. Hermansson comes in 11 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. He's 6-2 in his last 8. The Joker looks to put you on your back and punch your face, and that's where I feel he's most effective. He has an incredible choke sequence, guillotine choke wins over the likes of David Branch and Gerald Mearshars, 2 very accomplished Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. He's also out-grappled Jacare Souza. So his intent will be to do what many men have not done, and that's put Sean Strickland on his back. Strickland, 10 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, his 14 finishes. A 5-fight win streak, the last 4 at 185 pounds. The last 2 decisions over Krzysztof Jotko and Uriah Hall. Both guys at one point were making huge climbs and surges towards title contention. Strickland is a in-your-face pressure and volume boxer. 180 strikes attempted in his last 2 3-round fights. We're talking about 121 in his main event against Uriah Hall, going 5 rounds. A guy with 82% takedown defense and 66% striking defense. A purveyor of violence, a connoisseur of chaos. Strickland lives in the fire. His favorite position is in the pocket, exchanging leather. A guy with a beautiful jab and menacing hooks. If you go for a spinning maneuver and you miss, Strickland is all over you looking to land. Doesn't care if it's to the back of the head. He is a ferocious competitor. His cerebral intent to beat his opponents mentally has led to quite a social media persona that borders on psychopathic. This guy is a guy that you worry about him killing somebody in the street. That's almost something that he's mentioned he's fantasized against. When we talk about an animal that takes the mind games to the next level, that Sean Strickland also had a very vulgar edition of UFC Cribs recently. This is a boxer with tight defense who does very well at rolling with the punches. Maybe he'll throw some leg kicks, but most often, if he's letting the legs go, Strickland's looking high, trying to knock you out. Again, applying a lot of pressure. Hermansson's first goal here is to get Strickland off of him, to make Strickland take a step backwards. I've heard people very adamant that Sean Strickland has an incredible ground game, but that his wrestling is that messing element to chaining it together to showing what his grappling can do. Hermansson has that element, and if we hit the ground, it looks like the Joker will be on top. It's the boxer versus the grappler, and the winner sets themselves up very nicely in the middleweight division. We know we're just under 2 weeks away from the rematch. Robert Whittaker looking to regain the title from Israel Adesanya. That card will have Derek Brunson versus Jared Cannonier on it. That means we basically know who's getting the winner. It's right there on the card. What happens to the winner of Hermansson versus Strickland? That guy's most likely fighting Marvin Vettori or has put himself in title contention. Just looking at the division with Paulo Costa missing weight so horribly and being a non-factor, Vettori would be the guy that the winner of this fight has to get through to get a title opportunity. Strickland and Vettori probably have no problem fighting each other. I've heard they've done it many times before in what is very loosely categorized as sparring sessions and more trying to hurt each other's sessions. Co-main event is also in the middleweight division. Got Puna Soriano, 8-1 versus unbeaten Nick Maximov, a Diaz Academy protege. Soriano, 7 wins by knockout, 5 of those wins coming inside of the first round. Maximov, 3 submissions, 2 knockouts. Believe me, Maximov has the advantage on the ground and will be the party looking to take the fight there. In the welterweight division, Shavkat Rakhmonov, 14-0, is going to be taking on Carlston Harris. Harris is 17-4. Rakhmonov, 7 knockouts, 7 submissions, 2 fights in the UFC, both submission victories, tapping out Alex Oliveira and Michel Pereira, and those two are handfuls for everybody. We've seen both of them have major advantages on the ground, so it speaks hugely of the Kazakhstani fighter to be able to submit both of those Brazilians. Harris is on a 5-fight win streak. His last 3 have all been finished in the first round. The winner here is knocking on the door of the rankings. Rakhmonov is probably the least talked about top prospect at 170 pounds. I have him right there, right behind Khamzat Chimaev and Sean Brady. Not sure why this fight isn't getting more attention. And to be honest, no disrespect to Maximov and Soriano, but Rakhmonov should be in the co-main event. This is his opportunity to explode onto the scene. Everybody starting to figure out how to say that name, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Keep it in mind. Sam Alvey, Phil Haas, that one's on the main card. Alvey is on an all-time long UFC losing streak. Haas has had brilliant moments with his epic power, but has also gotten stung and finished. You know it's going to be Haas trying to apply the pressure to Alvey. Which one lands the bomb? Be interesting to see. Or could they stare at each other for 15 minutes? Also in the middleweight division, there's a theme of the night. It's middleweights. You have a rematch. The originally scheduled tough finale from this past year. Brian Battle, who won the season. Sean Gore was unable to be in that finale with a knee injury. Battle looks to once again solidify that he was the ultimate fighter. In the featherweight division, Julian Erosa takes on Steven Peterson. Erosa's won 4 of 5, 3 of them coming by choke. Peterson has won his last 2, a spinning back fist of Martin Bravo, a decision of Chase Hooper. So we've seen the ground and pound from Peterson. We've also seen some unpredictability with Erosa. It's all grit, toughness, and jiu-jitsu. At 135 pounds, Miles Johns versus John Castaneda. Johns, his last 2 wins, monster knockouts. A guy that was a decision machine and he kind of got that reputation on the regional scene. Always had great boxing and wrestling, but wasn't finishing fights. Well, an overhand right of Anderson Dos Santos, an uppercut of Kevin Navidad, and Miles Johns is one of the most exciting finishers at 135 pounds right now. Castaneda has a big mountain to overcome in this one. Featherweights, Hakeem de Wadenu takes on Mike Trisano. De Wadenu, 7 knockouts, has won 5 of his last 6, has 3 split decisions of those 5 wins. Trisano, 3-1 in the UFC, 2 of them by split decision. This one is going to be a tactical striking affair that could go the distance. That's what everything tells us. So expect a knockout, because I'm telling you it's going to be a decision. And also in the middleweight division, Marc-Andre Bertel takes on Chidi Njokuani. MAB has 9 wins by knockout. He's won back-to-back fights. The last 2, a decision over Dache Lungbe and a TKO of Abu Azatar. And Njokuani, 12 wins by knockout. His last 2 wins, both TKOs. Knees and punches took care of Christian Torres, and it was elbows of Mariano Felipe de Souza on the Contender Series to get this opportunity inside the octagon. Also in the welterweight division, Jason Witt, coming off of a hard-earned decision over Brian Barberena, takes on Philip Rowe. Rowe, 8 wins, 100% finishing rate. We also got a light heavyweight matchup. Daniello Marquez takes on Halton Almeida. Marquez has won 4 of 5, and of his 11 wins, he has 9 finishes, 4 knockouts, 5 submissions. Almeida, 14-2, a 9-fight win streak, all of them finishes. And opening up the night, it's the flyweights, Malcolm Gordon and Dennis Bonner. Gordon, 0-2 start to his octagon career. He rebounded, defeating Francisco Figueiredo in his last outing. Bonner, been trying to make this octagon debut for well over a year, is on a 8-fight win streak, 7 submissions, or 7 finishes, 6 submissions. The guy has a great head and arm choke, a great rear naked, and a very dangerous arm bar. If this one hits the ground, Bonner is more than credentialed to finish it. Again, visit the website. It's cageminds.com. Check out the After Hours Podcast Network. That's cageminds.com/After Hours to check out the latest episodes of everything going on there on the podcast networks. 4 different shows right now. And if I didn't tell you also, you can check me out on Mike Adams 2.0, that podcast, wherever you get yours. cageminds.com. All the support's appreciated. And the merchandise, one more time, you can find it by going to nmproshop.com. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.